Hi, it's Tony here, and I'm going to show you waveSharp 3, the free image sharpening software. And I'm going to show you today batch processing and animation for Saturn and moons. So I'm going to get started. And the first thing I need to do is I'm going to open up a series of Saturn images. These are based on some video captures that were aligned and stacked, resulting in these files here. So let's go ahead and select all the files. We're going to open them. And then in waveSharp 3, straight away, you'll see that the batch tab has opened up here. And so I can actually scroll through these Saturn images one by one. But the first thing I like to do is go into File Actions and do a rotation of the Saturn image. So I'm going to rotate it by about 90 degrees. Just give it a rough perspective of what Saturn would look like visually from the northern hemisphere. And then I'm going to shift the region of interest cursor around Saturn. And the first thing I'm going to do is go into the processing tab and check off some selections here. These things here I've covered in more detail in other videos in my channel. So definitely encourage you to take a look at that. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and do a sharpening function here. So the first level of sharpening, set it to about 100. Next one about half of that, and the next one about half of that again. And as I said before in waveSharp 3, there's a nice estimate filter that goes ahead and gives you a starting point for the sharpen filter setting. So it kind of removes some of the guesswork associated with sharpen filter. It's not by any means the number you should use finally, but it certainly gives a good estimate of what may work for you. And you can see it's doing the estimates for the 3 layers here, and then it stops there. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and increase the chroma-denoise by 3 or 4. And again, I've covered this in other videos. The next thing I want to do is go into the denoise tool. So in the denoise tool, there's these 4 settings here. The post all layers is a denoise you should apply immediately after a sharpening step. And so I'm going to check off that, and you see straight away the noise is being reduced. These other settings here you can play around with after you've performed some other tools on your image, some other settings on your image. So that's that done. Then the next thing we want to do is let's go into the histogram and let's play around with some of the color settings. So I'm going to select ROI here because that's the view that I have. Set the auto threshold, and then I'm going to play around with some of the settings here. Let's brighten up the image a little bit. Let's set up the saturation a little bit, and then let's set up the vibrance. These are all settings that are new in waveSharp 3. So now we've got, let's see here, we've done the sharpening, we've done a denoise, and we've done a color setting. If I go back into the batch now, you notice that those processing steps are being applied to all of the Saturn images, which is kind of nice. I'm going to go back to the processing tab, and then the question you may ask is, okay, great, where are the moons that we should process? So one thing you can do in waveSharp 3 is click on this disable background here, and you can see that it actually shows you very faintly a moon is visible just here. So it gives you an indicator of what we might be able to tease out of this image. So I'm going to disable that. And the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go into the background enhancement settings. And then part of that, I'm going to click on this toolbox here to show me the advanced tools. And the first thing you can do here is you can click on this button here that gives you an estimate of the edge mask that you can apply to this tool. And you see straight away we're showing a moon here and potentially another moon over here as well. And so what I'd like to do is I'm going to play around with these settings, and if I click on show here, you can see the extent of the mask. I'm going to take this edge number down quite a bit so you can see the impact that it has on the image. And it starts to basically move the mask away from the ring edges. And so let's take it down, maybe not too far, maybe around here. And then I'm going to increase the cluster. And you see what this does now. This starts to isolate the moons a little bit. And so let's increase this. Let's take it over to around about 1.5 or so. Maybe go a little bit higher. But you can definitely see now I'm starting to isolate the moons using this tool. And if I uncheck show, you can now see there's 2 moons that are showing. I'm going to focus on the right-hand moon to try and tease that one out for sure. So let's click back onto show, and I'm going to start to use the erode setting now. So what I'm doing is I'm basically eroding the mask as I try and tease out these moons. So let's stop round about there, uncheck show, and you can see definitely I've got 1 moon here. And I'm going to click on the magnifier, and let's focus on it. So the next thing we can play around with is in these advanced tools here. There is a peak setting that kind of isolates the brightness of the moon, if you will, and kind of hones in on the center area of the moon. So if I increase that peak, and then I also increase the smoothing of the mask, you can see the impact that it starts to have on that moon. Maybe increase the peak a little bit more. I'm going to go all the way, actually. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to synthesize the moon to look really as circular as possible. So maybe dial back on this edge setting as well, and maybe increase the erosion a little bit more. And maybe get quite aggressive on the cluster. So you can see here what I'm doing is playing around with these values here. And again, I'm trying to synthesize a round-shaped moon in this particular example. So let's take down the erosion a little bit, maybe down to around 70. Maybe increase the cluster a little bit. There we go. That's a little better. And maybe increase the edge a little bit more. And so what I can also do is I can also reduce the brightness of that moon as well. And maybe increase the smoothing just a little bit more. I'm going to leave it like this for now. You can get the essence of what I'm trying to do here using the background tool. And you can play around with these settings yourself, which I would like for you to do. So let's just leave it like that for now. Let's close this zoom window. And so the next thing that we can play around with now is we go back to the batch here. If I click on each file, you can see on each of the frames, I've actually exposed that moon on all of them. So that's a nice thing. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to now create an animated GIF. And so the first thing I need to do is I'm going to set the reference point. So I've just selected this 4th frame here. I'm going to click on this so that the overall image brightness is kind of based on that reference image. And then the next thing I want to do is I'm going to click on animation. And then I can make sure that reference point is set. And I'm going to go and generate the frames. So I'm going to create an animated GIF. I've only got 4 frames to play with. So I'm only just going to set the frames per second at 1. If I had a lot more frames, I could maybe increase that number to make it like a smoother running animation. So let's go ahead and click on generate frames. And what it does is, what waveSharp 3 is now doing is it's going through and it's creating basically an animated GIF. So what I'm going to do is I can now open up the folder where that animated GIF file was created, and there it is. There's the animated GIF. If I right click, let's go ahead and open up in Chrome, and you can see we've got an animation that's been created. So that's it for waveSharp 3, a simple processing steps that I showed you, batch mode, then going in and creating an animated GIF file. So I would definitely encourage you to play around with waveSharp 3 for yourself. Subscribe to this channel if you get a chance, and look out for more videos that we'll create. Thank you very much.